study with Alena Krupnavská, we examine the impact of the Russian-Ukraine war on the Czech populist radical right party called Freedom and Democracy, the acronym is SPD, and its direction of the party to the war. Before the war, SPD belonged to few pro-Russian and pro-Putin relevant political parties in the Czech Republic. Communication of the party about Russia integrated anti-liberal, anti-EU, anti-American, and also xenophobic narratives, which depicted Putin and his regime as, basically guardians of traditional life, values, and also Christianity. In his social media messages, for example, the leader of the party, Tomio Okamura, expressed an agreement with Putin's alleged claims on issues such as migration, same-sex marriage, or the role of the West and the United States in international relations. The party also shared the Russian narrative about the annexation of Crimea and the conflict in the Donetsk and Luhansk areas as the logical reaction of Russia to Maidan and basically provocations by the West. The party also recognized the referendum in Crimea as legitimate. During the weeks following the beginning of the war, the party, quite surprisingly, maybe only rarely commented on the war. When public reactions became more readable for the party, after the initial maybe shock caused by the attack, SPD developed a coherent discourse about the war. We identified three main features of the communication of the party about the war: the general quasi anti-war narrative, then the overarching socio-economic framing of the war, including nativism and welfare chauvinism, and then persistent anti-elitism. The underlying frame of the war is best characterized in this quasi-anti-war narrative. It set the tone of the party's principal stance on the war, relativizing Russia's responsibility by attributing part of the blame on Ukraine and the framing of the war as a logical reaction to security threats to Russia posed by Ukraine and also by the West. The quasi-anti-war arguments basically equaled a no-intervention position, also eventually legitimizing the aggressor. The party rejected economic sanctions and also military supplies for Ukraine as potential escalating the conflict. The second main feature was the economic framing. The economic difficulties became the central context in which the war-related issues were presented by the party. SPD pointed to high level of inflation in Czechia and also energy insecurity of the country. Okamura decided not to blame Russia communication strategy also in the economic context, and for the inflation rate and gas and oil prices were not explicitly linked to Russia's aggression in Ukraine. The party used it as the economic context to highlight the insecurities and exploit the sense of crisis due to war, and also threatening the situation of Czech citizens. So the party adopted nativism and welfare chauvinism as the major strategy for presenting the war in the broad economic context. The party contextualized government financial support, quite extensive, for Ukrainian refugees in terms of economic exclusionism and the worsening macroeconomic situation. It described the immediate measures and planned public spending on integration for refugees as costly and threatening the Czech social healthcare system. The far right created a persistent anti-elitist, anti-government narrative. Okamura accused the government coalition of incompetence, inefficient measures, not solving or even deepening the country's economic troubles. So in turn, constructed a nativist divide between the Czech people and Ukrainians, claiming the government prefers Ukrainians before its own people.